What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Detroit Lions yesterday had a little bit of news come out of the organization as they have officially opened up their search for a new offensive coordinator, and yesterday they brought in and interviewed the Baltimore Ravens quarterback coach James Urban. Now, I had a lot of thoughts about this interview. I thought this was a very interesting one, and obviously I know he did not get the job yet, but the fact just based off this first interview showed me and told me a lot about how Dan Campbell is trying to build this team, showed me a lot about how Dan Campbell envisions this team being ran in the near future, and tells me a lot about the Stafford situation, tells me a lot about this offense as a whole, and tells me a lot about how Dan Campbell is going to try to construct this team into a winner. Now, before we get into that and my thoughts on our potential offensive coordinator, James Urban, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this Detroit Lions content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes 2 seconds out of your day to do so. It helps the channel out more than you could know. I'd be super appreciative for it. It helped the channel out a ton, but with all that being said, and without any further ado, let's get into talking about James Urban, the potential offensive coordinator for our Detroit Lions, and what this interview alone means about Stafford and the Lions' future. Now, as I said, the Detroit Lions yesterday interviewed the Baltimore Ravens quarterback coach James Urban. Now, James Urban has been a quarterback's coach with the Baltimore Ravens since 2018, so he has been Lamar Jackson's quarterback coach since he entered the NFL, and in my opinion has done a very solid job with Lamar. I mean, he's helped Lamar develop a guy that has a ton of potential but isn't guaranteed anything. You know, he took a guy with all the upside in the world in Lamar Jackson, and it was up to this man and James Urban to iron out the flaws, to flatten some of his rougher edges. And he did a very good job at that. Lamar Jackson is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL right now. He's one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I mean, he helped Lamar Jackson become the quarterback he is today, and in my opinion, did a very good job at that. I think he's a very good quarterbacks coach. I think he did a very good job with Lamar Jackson, and you know, I think that if he were to come in, he probably has a very good offensive mind. I mean, Lamar Jackson's not your typical prototype quarterback, right? He's not going to drop back and throw it 50 times a game. You know, you got to teach him when to throw it, the decisions to make. I mean, he was an athlete coming out of college, and James Urban turned him into a quarterback in the NFL, and a very good quarterback at that. I mean, reigning MVP Lamar Jackson is one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the NFL, and a lot of his progress and a lot of his progression in the NFL can be attributed to his quarterback coach, James Urban. And you know, I mentioned at the beginning that this interview alone told me a lot about how the Lions are looking to run their team, shows me a lot about how they're going to handle the Stafford situation and how they want to build this team going forward. You know, first off, the first thing that I noticed is James Urban has only worked with mobile quarterbacks in the past. Wherever he's gone, wherever he has been, a lot of the time, and every time he's worked with a quarterback, it has been a dual threat and a mobile quarterback. And I'm not going to tell you Matthew Stafford's a statue. He can definitely get out of the pocket when needed, but he is far from a dual threat quarterback. Nobody's scared about Matthew Stafford running on them. Can he do it occasionally? Absolutely. He can definitely get out of the pocket, definitely evade pressure, definitely pick up a first down here or there, but by no means is Matt Stafford a mobile quarterback, and that is what James Urban is comfortable coaching with. That's what he knows how to develop. That is what he has done and what he has developed so far in his short coaching career as a quarterbacks coach. So from that standpoint, the fact that we interviewed him to be the offensive coordinator, not only a guy that has only really worked with mobile quarterbacks in the past, but a guy that comes from Baltimore who, you know, obviously has one of the best, if not the best, rushing attacks in the NFL. That tells me that they want to build a Ravens-esque offense. They want a mobile quarterback. They want to run the ball extremely effectively, and they want a guy that can throw the ball when needed, but they want a quarterback that can contribute in the run game and be an absolute weapon everywhere on the field. That's what that interview tells me. James Urban has only worked with dual threat quarterbacks, and Matt Stafford is not a dual threat quarterback. You know, that tells me that they're looking to move on. That tells me they're looking to get rid of Matt Stafford. They're looking to ship him off. And while I'm sure that's going to make a lot of people happy, I'm sure that's going to make a lot of people smile inside and think, finally, we're moving on from Matt Stafford. You know, that is just the case. And that's kind of how I see it right now, is the Lions are looking to move on from Matt Stafford. And that's what that interview tells me. You know, the fact that he's only worked with mobile quarterbacks before, the fact that he's coming from a Baltimore offense that has his quarterback involved in the run game so often, I think he's obviously going to take a lot from that Baltimore offense. James Urban is going to try to take as much of that Ravens offense as he can if he is the offensive coordinator and transfer it over to Detroit if he, again, does get the job as offensive coordinator. And a lot, if not all of the Ravens playbook, a majority of the Ravens offense relies on Lamar Jackson's legs, bootlegs and scrambles and QB draws and design quarterback runs and, read options. All these different things involve a mobile quarterback that can get out of the pocket and be dangerous with his feet. And Matt Stafford is not that guy. So the fact that we are interviewing James Urban, again, I think he's a solid coach. I think he's a very good coach in the NFL. And obviously he did a very good job developing Lamar Jackson. He's not going to come here to develop Matt Stafford. If we're bringing in James Urban, I feel like, and I believe it will be because we're bringing James Urban in to develop the next quarterback, whether that be Trey Lance, whether that be Zach Wilson, whether that be maybe Justin Fields falls for one reason or another. He will be brought in to develop the next quarterback. And that interview tells me that. The fact that we interviewed a guy who developed Lamar Jackson, a guy that's only worked with dual threat quarterbacks, a guy that if he were to come here would likely draw a lot of his game planning from the Baltimore Ravens, who use their quarterback a ton in the rushing attack and use the quarterback's legs a lot. That tells me they're looking to change the system in Detroit. That tells me they're looking for a more mobile quarterback. That means they're looking for a more modern style of offense with a quarterback that can run around, scramble, and extend plays as long as you need him to. That is what the Lions are trying to transition to, and I think this is the first step of them trying to get to that offense, and that's the first step of them trying to transition to the offense Dan Campbell wants to have. I mentioned, I talked about what this means for the Detroit Lions, and I kind of wanted to give my opinion on James Urban. I wanted to give my opinion on this whole situation with him being a potential offensive coordinator candidate, and personally, I don't like him as an offensive coordinator candidate. I know some people are going to say, oh, that's just because he's looking to trade Stafford. Oh, that's just because if we hire him, we're going to get the next successor and Stafford's going to be gone in a year. That's not why I don't like this hire, and that's not why I don't like this interview. Personally, for me, and I know a lot of other Lions fans feel this way, the Lions need somebody with experience on this team. They need some play caller with even a little bit, a couple years of experience calling plays. And as of right now, they don't have that. They have a first-year general manager. Obviously, he's not going to be calling plays. Obviously, I'm just mentioning that because he's a young general manager, first time being a general manager, first year in his career, he's been a general manager and had full control. We have a first-year head coach who's never, ever called plays before. We have a first-time defensive coordinator, supposedly, that's never called plays before in Aaron Glenn. And now we're looking at a first-time offensive coordinator who's never called plays before. That's not going to work in Detroit. You need somebody with experience calling plays. You need somebody with a history of coming up with game plans. Because if you put all these people in the room together, they might be great defensive minds. They might be great offensive minds. They might have a great logic and a great reasoning, and they might have a great mind for the game of football. But if you've never ever come up with a game plan before, if you've never ever called a defense or an offense before for a team, you are going to struggle early in your career more often than not. And I know there are some guys out there like Andy Reid who was incredibly successful early, although he was not a coordinator per se. I believe he was actually a quarterback's coach himself in his time before Philadelphia. So it's not that it can't work. I think the Lions are just being incredibly risky with interviewing all these different people. The Lions are not going to have any experience with these play callers if they do end up hiring James Urban and Aaron Glenn or any other positional coaches, whether they hire a quarterback coach or running backs coach, something like that. They're not going to have experience calling plays. They're not going to have experience coming up with a game plan. And the fact that we have no experience there right now, and the fact that they're still looking for more first-time people, makes me incredibly worried about the process that these Detroit Lions are going through. That makes me think very realistically they don't want to win next season. They're looking to build very far into the future. They're looking at this like a 5-year rebuild where they're going to have time to develop coaches. They're going to have time to develop personnel and players. They're going to have time to build this roster up to where it needs to be in the near future. And to me, this interview tells me that they're looking to transition the offense to a more modern style with a more mobile quarterback. And it tells me that they're not concerned about winning now. They're concerned about a long-term rebuild. And a lot of people think that's the case. I personally don't. I think this team has talent. talent. I think this team can win next season if they get the right coaches and the right play callers. But as of right now, I'm not seeing the right play callers being brought in. I like the coach. I really do like Dan Campbell. I like the general manager. I really like Brad Holmes as our GM, and I like Dan Campbell as our head coach. I even like Aaron Glenn as a defensive coordinator, being a former player. However, I think the Lions need to really get experience at this offensive coordinator position, and that's why I liked Darrell Bevell staying. He's been a coordinator for a long time. He's not going to need his hand held, and if Dan Campbell does need help, he can turn to a guy that's been an interim head coach before. He can turn to a guy that knows this roster very, very well. He can turn to a guy in Darrell Bevell that can just help him go along and help him smooth out some of the bumps, help him, smooth some of the rougher edges of the beginning of a coaching tenure in any city. I truly believe the Lions I think they need experience. They need experience in the play callers. This is a young team with a first-time head coach, a first-time DC, potentially a first-time offensive coordinator, a first-time general manager, and with, again, a very young team. The Lions are one of the youngest teams and one of the younger defenses in the NFL right now. All this youth and all of this inexperience can be very good in a couple of years, but as of right now, this team does not look like they are trying to win right now. This team looks like they're setting up for a long-term rebuild, reset the quarterback, reset the offensive system, reset all the coaches, develop your coaches for 2 to 3 years, develop your players, develop a new system, bring in everything new for this team. And I don't think the Lions need to blow everything up personally. I think they can bring in a guy with experience to call a good offense, even a above average offense for the 2021 season. And if we get a guy like Aaron Glenn who can at least make simple defensive adjustments and make a simple game plan that is not going to drop 8 people into coverage 90% of the time and not play man coverage 90% of the game, the defense will be better next season. The offense can get better next season if we bring in an experienced offensive coordinator. And personally, to me, bringing in James Urban doesn't help your franchise win. Bringing in James Urban doesn't move the needle. He's far from the best offensive coordinator candidate out there. He's far from the best option out there. And will he be able to develop a young quarterback based on his small track record? Yes, he has. Is he a bad coach? Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not trying to convince you that he is a bad coach. He is a Andy Reid disciple. He has developed Lamar Jackson. He has developed a couple other quarterbacks as well, and they have looked pretty solid in the NFL. So it's not even necessarily the fact that I don't like James Urban as a potential candidate. It's the fact that the Lions aren't bringing in any experience. The Lions aren't bringing in anybody that's going to help this franchise win and help this franchise be successful in the short term, even though they have the personnel to do so. With all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about the interview. Let me know what you guys think about James Urban being a potential offensive coordinator candidate. I'd be very interested to see your guys' opinion down in the comments below. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, I will obviously make a video letting every single person know. But until then, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching the video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, guys.